I was on the go. My phone was blowing up all the time. The industry was growing so fast and technology was getting updated and changing left and right. It was really hard to be an expert in everything. You have to be an expert in pricing, guest communication, photography, marketing, and that's where Angel Host really came in. You can't keep improving your company if you're trying to do everything. It's just impossible.
Some people think that by outsourcing, they'll miss out on the opportunity of learning.
It's the complete opposite. I've learned way more in a short amount of time by working with the experts, for sure. I'm telling you, it has given me so much more freedom. I don't work for my business, I work with my business. I get to enjoy it, I can focus on what I'm good at. We're like 30% more than my competition. Nothing is better than passing your goals and then passing them again. We're crushing, it's insane.
If anyone's listening, thinking twice about whether they should sign up with Angel Hosts, what would you say?
Don't wait too long, you better hurry up.
John, good to see you, man.
What's up, dude?
How are you doing?
Amazing. Always good to see you and hang out.
Likewise, man. Likewise.
Welcome to Scottsdale.
Yes, sir. Hey, can you believe it's been 2 years already since we started working together?
Wow, that is crazy. No, I can't believe it.
Time flies, huh?
Yep.
It's amazing.
I saved a lot of time.
Yeah.
I still have a lot of energy with you guys.
Yeah, no, you always do. That's awesome, man. So listen, the idea here is we want to get some of your thoughts about your experience working with Angel Hosts, what that's been all about. But before we go there, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah.
And Hilde Homes as a company, what you guys are all about?
Yeah, so my name is John Hildebrand. I'm in Scottsdale. Most of all my properties are still in Scottsdale. Still have one in Malibu. I own a company called Hilde Homes, luxury vacation rentals, property management, pretty much do everything. And then the other part of what I do is advocacy is really important to me. So in Arizona, we started the largest advocacy group, Arizona for Responsible Tourism. So pretty active in that space. And then I do a lot of content. I like educating and teaching people and connecting the connections that I have with other people. So that's the quick journey of my story.
Amazing. And for more details, there's an hour-long podcast session we have somewhere out there where we go into the story and how it all came together. In terms of, if we look back, so 2 years ago, we met at one of the many conferences
Austin.
that we've been going to. Yeah, Gestival, I think it was. And then, you know, back then, when you go back in time, like what were you going through at the moment that made it, you know, possible for you to even consider Angel Host as a solution? What was the struggle? What were you dealing with at that time?
I remember that like pretty clearly. I was transitioning from owning my own houses and managing and self-managing to a lot more owners and stuff reaching out to me, wanting to manage. And to me, that's like a little bit more pressure. You want to make sure everything's dialed in. So I started going down the route of like hiring a VA and like trying to find an assistant. And like started thinking about building out my team and realized how expensive that could be and how complicated it is to like get everything that was in my head on paper and then train somebody. Could take me years or months and months to find the right person. So when I went to the trade show, I heard you guys speak. You guys were speaking. You were walking around. You were talking to everybody about the service. And I was like, nah, this is too good to be true. Like what's going on here? This, how come everybody doesn't do this? Like, this is insane. And I remember the struggle of going like, I'm a little too scared to like go down the whole rabbit hole, right? Of trying to hire all these people and teach them and educate. Like, I don't know everything about all the software and tools. So I was very open to the conversation of listening to you guys, but you know, it took me a while to fully understand it and like make the commitment. But yeah, it was like burnout. There was a lot of burnout coming, and I was growing my portfolio and I was like, I got to do something. I was enjoying what I was doing. So yeah, that was 2 years ago.
And when you say burnout, like specifically, were you like spread too thin trying to handle like the hiring and also the operations and the guest comes? Like where were you spending most of your time back then in the actual day-to-day?
Yeah, at the time I was just starting to do a lot more content. So my time was starting to get a little bit more diverted between doing a lot of content on social and property management. And as you know, with property management, you don't really notice when you're going into it, but when you're doing your own, I just deal with myself and my vendors. When I'm managing for other people's properties. Like I have a homeowner, I have guests, I have all their vendors I got to deal with. So the amount of communication like tripled because I was working with other people now. So it was really important to build like solid connections with the homeowner, and it was starting to bog me down. I was like, okay, now I have to still do the guest communication. I was on the go. My phone was blowing up with guest communication stuff all the time. And then the industry itself was growing so fast, and technology was getting updated and changing left and right. It was really hard to be like an expert in everything. It's like, okay, I have to be an expert in pricing, finding the right cleaners, guest communication, photography, marketing. Like, so I had to really like dissect where my strengths and weaknesses were, and then find solutions of that. And that's honestly where Angel Host really came in.
And when you said it sounded too good to be true, what did it take for you to realize that maybe it could be true, maybe it was true, maybe it is true?
It still sounds too good to be true sometimes. Let's be honest. I think just the honest conversations. Like I had many conversations with you, your whole team, and just for those of you that know me, like I'm a big values person, and I have to like really understand the brand and the people behind the brand and the company. And your guys' values aligned with my values. Your goals were aligning with my goals. And you guys were always open to like having real honest conversations and growth strategies and all that. So I really appreciated that. And I wasn't even a client yet. And you guys were really open to sharing what you do, where you're improving, where you're going, and how you can be a huge asset to me and Hilde Homes, and how you could really be a part of my team. And once I heard like, hey, we're not taking over Hilde Homes. We're going to be an addition to Hilde Homes. You're still going to run Hilde Homes. We're just going to help you on the back end. I was like, oh, so I can still build the brand the way I want to build the brand. I'm just building a team behind the scenes. And to me, that was like exactly what I wanted to do. Mm-hmm. I wanted to focus on that. And it was a perfect partnership at that point.
Love it. And what were some of the concerns? Like, what were some of the things that you were having a hard time sort of letting go of at that point?
Guest communication was something I really wanted to get rid of off my plate. Right? Because I'm not a writer. I have, you and I talked about in the podcast, I have dyslexia. So like communication via text is not my strength at all. And I really wanted to but at the same time, it helped being very personable, right? So I was worried that like, if I gave up guest communications, could that hurt my business? Could I get bad reviews? Could I start losing money on that? And so that was like, really concerning. Like, how are these people going to understand my property? How are they going to get the feeling between Scottsdale and the different homes and the relationships I have with these guests? Maybe like, is it going to sound like me? Is it going to sound like a robot? Like, that was like probably the biggest concern. And I had to learn that over time to like put my guard down a little bit and just trust the system and just let it try out. And
what would you tell someone that's maybe going through the process of considering working with Angel Host and having a similar concern when it comes to letting go of that control?
I think it's a legit concern for sure. Like, you hear me talk about it all the time. I'm always like, it's hard to give up your baby. Like, Hilde Homes is my baby. I worked really hard to build what I want, but you can't grow efficiently and you can't keep improving your company if you're trying to do everything. It's just impossible. It just does not work. You start to sacrifice the guest communication, or you forget about the pricing. So I knew that guest communication was my weakest link. So I was willing to give that a try first and give it up. So when I did, for me to make it work, I just shadowed it. I just kind of watched. I stood in the background, watched the communication, and then would communicate with you guys like, hey, maybe we can try this kind of language or whatever. And then it gave me the confidence like, okay, these are experts. They really know how to communicate with the guests. It's very personal. It does not feel like a robot. If something does happen, you guys jump on it really fast. And the response time was really fast, which is important. And it felt like a human. So to me, that started building a ton of confidence. I was like, okay, I can teach them more about the house. The guest communication is something that just has to come, right? Mm-hmm. So it took a little bit of time, but I would say for anybody out there that's in the same situation as I am, is like, what's the other solution? You're gonna burn yourself out. You could sell your business. You can crash your business to the ground. So what's the worst that's gonna happen by trying? So like, you have to be open to the idea of trying and expanding your team. And I'm telling you, it has given me so much more freedom to enjoy my business a lot more. I don't work for my business. I work with my business, so I have tons of freedom now. I get to enjoy it. I get to sit here and talk and not worry about being on my phone. So it's opened up so much more, and I can focus on what I'm good at. Like, I love the marketing side of it. I love like networking. So yeah, guest communications off my plate alone has been game changer.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And what about the pricing side of things? So how were you dealing with pricing your properties before Angel Host came in, and what was the struggle or the challenge there?
Yeah, so I was using Wheelhouse, and I dove all in. I love Wheelhouse. I love the team over at Wheelhouse, but pricing is tricky. And if you're not like a hardcore numbers revenue guy and really good at understanding stats, you're kind of just looking at a blank screen almost. And you're kind of just hoping and wishing. And in my mind, I was always like, am I leaving money on the table? Am I not giving enough to my homeowners on revenue? Is revenue kind of like a second or third thought? And that was really starting to weigh on me and frustrate me. I was like, okay, we're getting bookings. The revenue's okay. The revenue's good. But could it be better? If somebody was way smarter and just focusing on revenue, could I improve? And to me, that was like, that's going to help my investors. It's going to help my partners. So giving that part up was, like I said, another weight off my shoulders big time, because it's experts in that field. They really understand the data. It's all about data. It's not about emotions when it comes to revenue. And emotions get involved with homeowners like, well, my property is worth X. You're like, no, it's not. I'm sorry, but the data shows you X, Y, and Z. This is the data. So now I have, my revenue team, Angel Host, to be able to prove that and be like, no, here's the data. Here's all the data points. This is what your house is worth. Now, if you want more money, this is what we can do. We can add a hot tub. We can add this and that. But you have to show data. So having the hard data, and you might know better than I, but I think we're like 30% more than my competition. Yeah. I think like we're crushing. It's like insane. So having that, you start to build the trust. And the trust starts getting more and more strong. So I have complete trust in my revenue team and my guest communication. And that's the most important. You have to give, what do they say? Like, if you're hiring someone who's an expert in revenue or guest communication, you got to let them do it. If you try to micromanage the heck out of it, they can't do their job. You got to trust them. You got to let them do it. You got to listen to the feedback and then go for it. Really, to be honest. Yeah.
Pricing flexibility as well is part of that trust component. How important has that been to the results that you're mentioning, 30% more than the competition?
And I still learn that quite a bit, because I'm like, man, I think my property, is worth more than, I don't know, let's just say $200, right? It's like, no way. But if it's not getting booked, maybe it's the price, right? So it's like, you do at one point kind of have to trust the data and the system and the team. So by doing that, you can fill a lot more gaps. And then next thing you know, instead of focusing only on the daily rate, $150, $200, you think about the end of the month. And when the end of the month report comes and that house was projected at $6,000, then we start working with you guys and now we're at 10 or 12 grand. It's like, oh, all those little numbers just added up quite a bit. Okay. Yep. Sometimes you have to drop your price enough to get the booking. And there's other procedures, people always worry, if I drop the price too low, I'm going to get the bad guests. Yeah, that's true. But you can put other systems in place to kind of screen your guests a little bit better.
Yeah. And there's also, again, going back to data, data that proves that there's not a necessary correlation between renting low and getting a bad guest. Yeah. I think we did an interesting study on that. We analyzed 13,000 reservations that resulted in around 200 claims for property damage. And we zoomed in on those 200 claims for property damage to see where they rented at a price point that was higher than the property's ADR or lower than the property's ADR, to see if it was a cheap or an expensive booking. Yeah. And it turns out that 64% of the reservations that resulted in a claim for property damage actually had been expensive bookings, which just shows that guests that pay a lot also can damage the property. It's not because you pay. It's part of doing the vacation rentals, right? It comes with the territory. Now, you said that one of the questions you were asking yourself when it comes to revenue management is, am I leaving money on the table? Yep. And I feel like a lot of people ask themselves that question but don't have a clear answer to that. Why is it hard to answer that without the data that Angel Host has been providing?
I feel like you almost have to be like a data scientist to really understand if you're leaving money on the table. And that's just not my strength. You really got to have enough tools and softwares, and you got to get the feelings out of it. And I think with a revenue team, they're focused strictly on data and the numbers. They don't put any of the emotions around it. So with all the software you guys use, you guys are using all kinds of software, not just one tool. You're using a bunch of different things to find the right data so you can get a lot more accurate if you're leaving money on the table or not, or you're undercharging or whatever it is, right? Or you're not getting enough occupancy. So I think it's like literally trust the system. Really. Yeah. It's really trust a good revenue guy. A good revenue guy is everything, right? And you owe that to your homeowners and your investor, because they're investing a ton of money, maybe $1 million on a house or whatnot. And if their projections are not giving you what they need, they could sell the house. You could lose a client, whatever it is, right? So the more money you can make somebody, the happier they're going to be. The less the phone calls are going to come in. Like, where's the bookings, the money? So it just comes down to multiple data points and just really studying and listening to what the guests are saying.
Now, when did you realize that leaving the tool alone, in your case, it was Wheelhouse, but it can be whichever other dynamic pricing tool is out there. There's plenty of them. There's Price Labs, there's Turbo Suite, there's Beyond Pricing. At the end of the day, these are all tools. We like to use the analogy of planes. It's like having a plane, but you need also a pilot, the revenue manager that knows how to make the most out of the plane. When did you realize, and how did you realize that just plugging in a dynamic pricing tool and crossing your fingers and closing your eyes wasn't going to cut it?
I like your analogy of the plane. I always think about it as cameras, because my background is photography and cameras, and people always will reach out to me and be like, oh my God, that photo is amazing. What camera did you use? Thinking if they go buy that camera, they can get that same photo. And it's just not the case, right? You can have the best equipment in the world. If you have no idea how to use it, you're not getting that same shot. Just to open up one of the revenue management and plug in a few settings and then walk away from it, it's suicide. You got to be adjusting things all the time. So like you said, you got to have someone who lives and breathes that software and that tool and knows everything and is willing to talk to Price Labs or show up to the webinars, check out all the updates on the product updates. Like, they got to live and breathe it every moment of it. They have to know everything about that software, the new stuff that's coming. How can we improve it? What other data points do I need to be looking at? I mean, you guys are looking at my properties every single day, probably multiple times a day, adjusting my price and looking at price. So I couldn't do that and then do all the other things at the same time. It's just, there's not enough time in the day. So yeah, you got to be an expert in your field, and yeah.
And it's not because you're not an expert in the vacation rental industry that you decided that you shouldn't be their revenue manager. I mean,
totally.
You are an expert. You talk with experts all day long. You interview them. You know what tools are out there and how they work and how they compare with each other. But it's this idea of really asking yourself, is this the best use of my time?
Yeah.
Why do you think a lot of people struggle with that? The idea of just delegation, and they feel like they have to do it all themselves.
Yeah, I think it's also like an ego trip a little bit too, and like a pride thing. I think that lets people not grow, right? I think they want to be like, oh, I do all the guest communication, I do all the price, and this is why we're crushing it. And they want that pride instead of like, oh, my entire team, I got the best team. My team is building this whole company. Like, I think that's what happens with some of these CEOs or in any business, right? They want to act like they're doing everything. And I just don't think that's a very efficient way to grow. Like, there's no way you could be an expert in every little thing. Yes, I understand revenue. I can look at it. I can get it. I can sit with the revenue team and go through it with them together and be like, I think we should try this and adjust it. Like, I get it, but it's only going to slow you down by not letting someone just run it. So I think that's probably what it is, to be honest. I think it's like a lot of ego probably gets in the way, and it's your baby. It's your company, right? So you feel like if it's not working, it's your fault. If it's working, it's on you too, right? Everything's on you. So, but I'm a huge believer in building a team. I think it's super important. I think it's good to be around a team, So yeah, I think probably a lot of the ego gets in the way.
Absolutely. And you are, of course, an operator.
Yep.
You're also a host, a local host. You've invested in your own properties. And there's this feeling of, well, this is my backyard. I know this market. I know my properties. How can this company based in Canada come in and tell me how to do pricing when they've never been in Scottsdale? It's our first time here in Scottsdale.
Totally.
And I'm loving it. But what has been your thoughts on how we get to understand your market, even though we're not here?
Yeah, I think there is a good mix. That's a good point, because there is a good mix between data and then knowing your market, right? I know Scottsdale really well, been here for a long time, born and raised in Arizona. There's a lot of events that may not pop up in the price labs and all the other stuff, right? So just knowing what's going on or listening to other hosts going, oh my gosh, this weekend is just booking solid. Well, why wouldn't I share that with my revenue team? So it's just about open communication. The revenue is going to be looking at all the data. Who cares if they've never been to the city or whatever? They're going to pull every data, but they're also going to talk to me and say, hey, you know, in your experience, what are some of the big dates in Scottsdale? What are some of the things we need to look out for? What are some of the other properties that maybe we need to keep an eye on that's similar to yours? Like, and they're going to do the data, and then I'm going to go out and be the boots on the ground and listen to the ear. But having that open communication with my revenue team, I don't really stress on that, right? I hear a lot of people say that. They're like, "Oh, how is this company in Canada going to know my pricing? It's so different here." It will take time. It's not going to be perfect right out the gate, but having that communication and going back and forth and adjusting, you're not going to get it perfect right out the gate. There's no way. So you're going to have to keep adjusting. So it takes time. But like I said, we've been doing it for 2 years and we're up 30%. So
yeah,
the proof is in the pudding, right?
Yeah. The results are there. And I think it's understanding that revenue management, to your point, is less about getting the strategy right, perfectly right from the get-go. Yeah. And it's more about being fast at adapting and adjusting as you see results and as you see performance and as you see the booking velocity maybe speeding up a little bit too much or slowing down more than it should be slowing down. And it's having that person, going back to this idea of specialization, that does only that, right? That's not out there talking with owners or finding new properties to acquire or dealing with the operations team on site, day in, day out, behind the computer, looking at numbers, looking at data, looking at pickup reports, looking at market penetration indexes. And it's like, yeah, if you're a data scientist and you love spreadsheets and you have nothing else to do, exactly. Then sure.
I'm shaking my head going, I want to be outside.
Pretty much. I mean, especially with this nice weather around here, you want to enjoy it. So tell us more about the relationship with Angel Host. What do you appreciate the most about the actual day-to-day of working with us?
Man, a lot. I'll break it down in sections, right? So I have a project manager. So I have a go-to person that maybe I can vent to, get some frustrations out, maybe a bad guest or whatever, and not take it out on the guests or take it out on the rest of the team, or come up with strategies, or, you know, I have like a go-to person that we can strategize on growth and whatnot. And that's super important. I think having a really good project manager is really important. And I've had a few that's been awesome, right? And then the other part of that, like you said, then the other main communication I have is with my guest communications team. And I think it's made up, you would know better, but I think I have like 6 or 8 communication members on my properties. I know to do others, but we have Slack communication that goes on. And it's not always business. Sometimes it's like, hey, how's everybody doing? Let's touch base. Like, are you guys happy with the way things are going? I want to hear feedback from you. And so we have like this honest communication with each other, which then shows that I care about the company. They care about it more. So then they put more effort into the communication and stuff too. So I have that side of the team and then the revenue team, and we're all working together to improve the properties, because if my properties are doing better, it's better for Angel Hosts. If Angel Hosts is doing better for me, it's better for me, my homeowners, investors. So it's all treated as one big company, and that's hard to do. It's really hard to do.
Yeah.
especially if you're trying to build it all on your own. And then your on your guys' end, your leadership will trickle down all the way to my guest communications, from your CEOs to the, project managers. They do a really good job of getting everyone to feel a part of the company. Everyone's very valuable. We respect everyone. You guys treat everyone, as far as I know from the outside, right? Treat everyone really well. And that will trickle off into my company, Hilde Homes. And to me, that's all comes down to why I partner with you guys, because I believe in your guys' mission and the values. And that will, like I said, it translates straight to my company. If everyone at the workforce is unhappy, that's going to affect my business, right?
It does come down to the model that we've decided to build at Angel Host, which is there's a lot of planes out there. There's a lot of tools that will tell you, here's the best technology, throw it at you, wish you good luck. Yes, maybe they're going to have some calls with you to onboard it, but then they're going to wish you good luck at some point sooner or later. Whereas we think the human element is crucial. Yeah. The human element of building a partnership with you makes a difference, we think. And at the end of the day is part of what I believe a lot of our clients, and from what you're saying, seems to be also what you appreciate about working with Angel Hosts. Is yes, we have the tech, yes, we have the data, but we also have the people, right? And those people are there for you. They care for you. They want to see you succeed. They want to see you grow. They want to go above and beyond. Going back to the fact that there's a lot of technology solutions out there, why do you think so many people are feeling overwhelmed by, sort of analysis paralysis when they go? We were just at VRMA International, and you see literally hundreds of vendors, and each of them is specializing in this one little thing. What are your thoughts on that as a host that's getting out there, that's all excited to get their property booked and whatnot, and then all they face is an infinite possibility of technology solutions, each of them telling them that they're the best at that one thing. What's the struggle there? What's the challenge there?
I think it's overwhelming. I can see how people get bit, because I remember when I went before you guys, it was like 2.5 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, when I went to Verma and Vegas. And I remember that same feeling, walking around, seeing all these vendors doing all these things. I'm like, wait a minute, I have to learn how to do all this? Like, I got to talk to this software and this guy. So now I'm talking with homeowners, guests, all my vendors as far as cleaners. And now I got to talk with another like 10 different companies and build relationships with all these little tools. And I'm supposed to know how to connect them all. And I was like, no. There's got to be a better way. This is insane.
It's overwhelming. Like, it's a challenge. So, like, you go out there and you don't know where to start. And
there's a lot, like you said, and then there's a lot that do very similar things or the same things. So now you got to choose like which one you want to go with and build your long-term relationship with. It's not easy switching once you lock something in. Yeah. Right. So I can see how people could get extremely overwhelmed with it. And this is, you're not kicking me on their table to say this, but it's like, that's where Angel Hosts is very valuable, because it's your mission and job to know that stuff, right? No matter what.
And to consolidate it.
And consolidate it.
All deal with us.
Yep.
We'll deal with all of them.
Yep.
Right?
Like, at the end of the day, I don't really care what software you're using, as long as it works with you guys. Yeah. I don't have to go build that relationship, right? I don't have to pay for it either, technically, right? That's been game changer, honestly. I personally enjoy understanding the software and learning it and getting it.
Of course.
But to do the day-to-day all the time, there's no way. It's so overwhelming.
And that's a great point you bring up, which is some people think that by outsourcing, let's say, their revenue management to Angel Hosts, that they'll miss out on the opportunity of learning what revenue management is and how revenue management is done. And they feel that revenue management is a core function of a hosting business, an operations management business in the vacation rental space. What do you think about that? Do you think you've let go of the opportunity to learn about revenue management just because you've delegated it, or have you still
I'm laughing because it's complete opposite. I've learned so much more by it, because now I can spend time to go watch the webinars. I can spend time to go watch other YouTubers talking about revenue management and stuff, instead of being on the computer looking at spreadsheets all day, right? Or I can talk with a team. We can dive in. If I have a question, You guys are fully transparent. You're not trying to hide anything behind some paid wall, right? So if I have a question or a concern, they'll just show me. They'll open up the data and be like, hey, let's look at this. You know, this is what the data's saying. So I think it's a complete opposite. I've learned way more in a short amount of time by working with the experts, for sure.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And I worry about that with like guest communication. Am I going to miss something? You know, like building a relationship with my guests. Are they going to know it's me or not me? It's been the opposite.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And what has that allowed you to do? What has working with Angel Hosts allowed you to spend more time on and focus on that if you were having to do it all, maybe you would not have enough time to do?
Hopefully a lot of snowboarding this winter. Let's be real. I'm like dying to go hit the slopes.
Love it.
Freedom. Like so much more freedom. Like I don't even want to go down this rabbit hole, but you hear all the TikTok Johnnies on TikTok like, oh, I have an Airbnb, passive income. That is so false, completely false from reality. It is 100% work, right? But with that said, partnering with somebody like an Angel Host has given me a lot more of a feeling of a passive business and a lot more freedom and time to become a master at something else and network with people like you guys and do these podcasts and do more content and like bring value back to Angel Host, right? So I can be boots on the ground. I can go learn something and bring it back to Angel Host and be like, hey, I just learned this. This is working with this other property management company, or this is what the industry's kind of thinking. Like maybe we should adjust and do this. Yeah, dude, I got so much time back. And that's what I really wanted. I really wanted a lot more of my time back. I felt like I was on my phone 24/7, and this is not healthy. So, and having you guys with the software that integrates, like a good example is like, you know, your noise monitoring systems. I use Minute syncs directly up with you guys in Guesty. I don't have to be up all night stressing over Minute. It will just automatically sync with you guys. It will sync with customer service. They can reach out to the guest. It's like that alone is, I mean, my phone's off at like 10 p.m. at night every night. And I don't, you know, guest communication knows that. Try not to bug me past 10. If the noise goes off, it goes off. They deal with it. You know, it's like that alone is worth everything. Like to me, it's like
peace of mind. At the end of the day, it's like
peace of mind.
The one thing we talk a lot with operators and hosts in this space about is how, to your point, it's a 24/7 business, and it's like how long can you sustain that by yourself?
Not long. No, you can't. You really can't. If you're trying to grow and scale, you really can't, and you shouldn't. You owe it to yourself for one, right? And you owe it to your guests. You owe it to your neighbors, right? It trickles down that far. You owe it to your cleaners to get more bookings. You owe it to your partners, you know, whoever you're managing for. Yeah, it's just a way smoother system. Yeah.
And going back to this mindset on delegation, it's again asking yourself, what's the best use of your time?
Yeah.
What can you be world class at? What can you be the best in the world at?
Yep.
Right? Is it revenue management? Again, if you're an engineer, data scientist that doesn't want to see the sun, that doesn't want to go snowboarding, that wants to stay behind the screen all day, you know, day in and day out, and that's their passion and doesn't have anything else to deal with, then go for it.
Yeah.
But other than that, is that the best use of your time? It doesn't mean you cannot become an expert, right? Like you could, if you wanted to, you totally could.
Totally.
So it's not about whether you can do it.
Yep.
It's about whether you should do it, right? And I think that's where people get caught into, again, this ego cycle of not wanting to let go because they feel like they can do it, but it's not a matter of whether they can.
Yeah.
It's a matter of whether they should.
Yeah, and it, like you said, it's still it comes down to everything, right? Like we are a true partnership. So you have to build that partnership. You know, you don't have to rush it into it. Like when you and I were first talking and going in our company, like we went through like what Hilde Homes wants, what some of the things, you know, what are some of the things that I really need help on? You know, what are my systems that I'm doing? It's not like you guys were like, nope, this is the way we do it. This is the only way we do it. Every property manager, every CEO has a different way they want to do certain things. It's just is what it is. There's no blueprint on how to do this co-hosting. There's no wrong way or right way to do it. And you guys do a very good job at adapting. That's probably the right word, adapting to that company, right? Because I've sat with other interviews with different other people that are using Angel Hosts, and they do something way different than I do, but you guys are still doing that with them. And that's important. That's super important because Hilde Homes is much different than the person down the street.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what kind of stands things apart. Yeah.
Yeah. Recognizing that each operator, each host is going to be, to your point, different, have different needs. So it becomes very challenging to have something that is exactly the same for everyone. Yeah. And that's another challenge, another question I get a lot. It's, will this work for me specifically?
Yep.
I'm different.
Yep.
My market's different. My operations are different.
Yeah.
The numbers here are not the same as they are elsewhere. Right? And it's like, of course.
Yeah.
And we'll learn it, and there'll be a learning curve.
Yep.
Right? And I love that you keep talking about the fact that this is a partnership, because this is what we always talk about.
Yeah.
The fact that we're not going to tell you, here's your tool, good luck, and see you later. It's like, no, we'll be there for you.
Yeah.
We have things to learn from you as much as we hope there's going to be things you're going to be able to learn from us.
Totally.
And so it's mutual.
Yep.
Right? And that's what a partnership is all about.
Yep.
Otherwise, then what's the value? What's the point? In staying in a relationship where it's just one way.
It's like you said, it's not sustainable. Period. Yeah. And it's about getting the systems dialed in. You can, back to what we were talking about, it's like you can really focus on your strengths. So it's given me so much more time to focus on, working on marketing to get more direct bookings, or how do we get these guests to come back or tell their friend to come back. And that's been super fun, and getting new partners, like, getting the cleaning dialed in a lot tighter, finding a concierge and working with a concierge and stuff like that. So you hear me talk about it all the time. It's a no-brainer. Like it literally is a no-brainer. It's like, it's been game changer it's allowed me to grow. I feel 1,000% confident going into a pitch, like say I'm meeting a homeowner for the first time. When you're brand new and you're starting off, it can be very nerve-wracking. They're like, okay, so you're going to manage my multi-million-dollar home. Oh yeah. So who works with you? You're like, it's just me. That might not sell a homeowner, but if you're like, oh, I have a full-time revenue management, I have a full-time guest communications, I have a project manager, 24, I got, if the more you can bring to the table and the value you can bring, the more that homeowner is going to look at you and be like, this guy's got his stuff together. Like, I trust it. And then they got to trust you. But like, I have so much more confidence going into these meetings, and, oh, you need a pitch? Yep. I'll put a pitch together. Just give me a couple of days. I'll show you what the revenue could potentially do. I'll show you what we could do. And I show you where we can improve. And having that team is like the number one part of the puzzle that makes it all work, right?
Yeah, whether that's with owners, whether that's with investors, because you're raising money to buy your next property, whatever that is. I mean, you call your revenue management team, we'll put it together for you. Could you have built that report? Maybe how many hours would it have taken? And then, at the end of the day, how precise would it have been?
Yeah.
It comes down to data. Totally. It comes down to having someone dedicated to doing only that. And in terms of results, right, you were saying earlier that you've seen how we are outperforming the competition, which is always defined as the competitive set of properties that we handpick, hand select, that are direct, apples versus apples comparison versus yours. And we're outperforming those by 30%, right? And also, I was looking at the numbers before coming in one of your properties, and we're in October right now, so the year is not over.
Yep.
We have already made 6% more revenue than entire last year. So when you look at that, and when you contrast that with, I don't know about you, but we've been having a lot of conversations of people saying that it's been difficult, that they're struggling, that Q3 was their hardest. Quarter in years, and they are getting pressure from all directions, and the economy stuff. So when you contrast the numbers that you see, that you have real-time access to, with what you hear out there, how does that make you feel?
Oh, dude, you have nothing is better than passing your goals and then passing them again. there's only so much you can like predict and like hope and dream. I'm a huge visionary. I'm a huge dreamer. I'm always like, we can do better. How do we do this and that? But then to see the number go past it and then go past it again, where I'm like, oh, whoa, we not only did we beat our goal, now we're like past that goal. It's like, dude, it's so much more fun, right? But even to dissect that a little bit, like in Arizona, we have a slow season and it's summertime. During that time, I can go to you guys and prepare all my homeowners with real data and be like, look, if we get one booking in summer, that's a win. Look at the data. All these people are not getting bookings at all. Nobody's getting bookings right now. And then I get to go to the homeowner and be like, hey, we got you a week booking. We got a 2-week booking. We got you 3 months booking. Like, we absolutely crushed our slow season. I've never had a slow season that booked. Yes, not every single property. Some properties have other features than others, but overall, we were really busy this summer. And that's like kind of unheard of in this market. It's really difficult to get bookings in the summer. And that's because of the team and adjusting and always moving things around, right? And I do want to highlight one thing that I was thinking about when you were talking about, the trust and showing the software and the data. We do that all the way through the homeowners. You guys just launched a new feature where my homeowners now can log in and see real-time numbers. So there's no smoke and mirrors. They can see exactly what their property's doing, what some of the competition's doing, what the calendar is looking like. This insane dashboard with so much information for them that gives them the confidence that the homeowners don't feel like they have to constantly reach out to me anymore. They feel this, like, the trust has gotten way stronger, right? And I don't have to prove that we're beating the competition. I don't have to prove these numbers. I can be like, look, check it out, sign in, go check it out. And that alone has just been like insane. They start to trust me more. They start to trust you guys more. But yeah, man, it's pretty cool. I'll tell you this real quick. We were talking about this at breakfast. We have a property. It's 25 minutes outside of the city. Most of the data, the property would do okay, but the numbers weren't great. They were like, okay. There wasn't that many properties around, but we bought the property and I was working with you guys in the team and it started doing pretty good. We were like, okay, we were getting some bookings. The revenue was pretty good. Speaking of like leaving money on the table and stuff, it's doing pretty good. The owners are happy. I'm so happy, but I knew we could do better somewhere. So we did another massive deep dive in data with your team. I got some other people involved. We kind of like started diving into the data from outside of the city because there was nothing near me. And then we made some adjustments. We spent like another $40,000 on the property, added, string lights, all this other stuff to it. And boom, instantly adjusted the revenue, adjusted everything else, redid some of the optimization of the listing. And now we are literally crushing that property. We were booked every single weekend for the summertime, which is, like I said, unheard of. And I think you were pulling up that stat. We're going into October, already past those numbers. We're projected to do better than the projections that we sent the homeowner already. But we were able to look at the data, present it correctly, bring it to the owner, myself and my partner, and be like, hey, if we add these things, we can bring in more money and revenue. Is it a risk? Sure, but the data's showing us it's not. So we jumped on it and did it. And that was a real good partnership in action, like seeing it go down. And the results are just now coming in where it's like, oh, wow, this is really starting to pay off, which is insanely cool.
Yeah, again,
I just had to share that because it's so cool. We were talking about it earlier.
Going back to, yes, we do certain things. We do pricing for you, whatnot. We do data for you, but we go above and beyond too. Like if you need help, if you need strategy, to whatever degree that we can assist in those things, we're here for that.
Yeah.
And what about you as a host with the properties that you own? And we're talking again about this concept of pricing flexibility, and it's crucial because we know we can get good results.
Yep.
We know we can outperform the market. We know we can increase year over year sales. We've seen it time and time again. Now with more than 1,200 properties.
Damn.
For us, it's really a matter of, can you trust our recommendations and give us the pricing flexibility to get those kind of results? And especially when you're a host and it's your property and you've bought it with your own money and you maybe furnish it yourself, and it becomes very challenging sometimes to let go of what we were saying before, that mindset of looking at rates versus looking at overall revenues and overall performance. How have you been able to let go of that, right? And just trust at the end of the day.
Because I was saying earlier, you got to take the emotions out of the pricing. But like you said, there's a lot of emotions in real estate. There's a lot of feelings in real estate. That's what makes it so great. But like, yeah, I was laughing because you do have to let go. You do have to trust the numbers, right? You got to have a threshold. You got to be comfortable with it sitting empty sometimes, right? That's just a part of the business, right? Mm-hmm. You got to be okay with that. You do have to let it go. And in the summertime out here, there was a couple times I'm like, "Are you sure, man? This seems like pretty low." And he's like, "Yeah, but maybe we can do longer stays. The price looks low. It'll get somebody to come in, but maybe they book for 4 nights." And I think we're averaging at one of these properties like 5-6 nights a booking. Like there's nothing less. So it's like, okay, that actually did work. So yeah, I laugh about it, the pricing all the time, because I'll go back and forth with your pricing team. I'm like, "I don't know, dude. Like, are you sure?" He's like, "Yeah, let's just trust me. Let's feel it out. You know, and I'm like, okay. And then, like you said, at the end of the month, you're like, whoa, dude, we're at 12 grand, 15 grand now. I did not see that coming. So yeah, it's a back and forth.
Yeah.
It comes down to the communication again, for sure. But
trust,
the good part is, like, with your own properties, you can take that risk, right? And I will personally test a lot on my own properties with Angel Host, because then I can go back and show those results to properties that I manage for other people. I can be like, look, I'm testing this because I want to make sure it worked. But look at this property. We tested it. We dropped the prices down here. It's booked solid. Mm-hmm. Are you willing to, And then they kind of trust it a little bit more because I'm doing it too. Mm-hmm. They're like, oh, well, John's doing it on his personal properties and he's treating our properties like his personal properties. Then they're willing to, like, come down. But yeah, data, trust, communication.
Yeah. We love making those exercises of comparing similar properties with different levels of pricing flexibility, and just seeing the impact that not focusing on the rate, but focusing on the month, quarter, year performance can have.
Well, everyone thinks their property is better than somebody else's, right? Especially when you did it, right? Yeah. You're like, my property is better than that. It's like,
right.
Like you said, you got to break it down. Well, they have this, so I don't have that. Well, they have this, and I don't have that. You got to, like, try to take the feelings out of it again.
Yeah. And your property, as good as it is, there's 100 other properties in the market especially that might be similar to it as well. And especially in an environment where there's more and more supply coming into the market, and supply in a lot of cases outgrowing demand in terms of growth, it becomes challenging. There's more and more competition. There's more and more people thinking that this is easy and they can just come in and make a ton of money. And all that does is that elevates the bar, and what used to work maybe a couple of years ago is simply not enough anymore.
I'm actually really glad you brought that up, because saturation is real, right? It's so real. And I hear it all the time about, the Airbnb bust and Airbnb bust. I don't believe in the Airbnb bust. I believe people are setting it and forgetting it, not paying attention to the data, not working with the right team. And that's where Angel Host is so powerful, because it's like saturation is real. So you have to level up on everything you do: design, pricing, communications, cleaning, everything, right? And Angel Host helps do that to make you stand out. You think every single person around here has a full-time revenue management team? No, I don't think so. You think all the competition has, 5-minute, 3-minute guest communication responses? No. So is that going to level me up? Is that going to get fed into algorithm better? 100%. Mm-hmm. Is that going to get me more bookings? 100%. Mm-hmm. So, like, that's another great example of working with the right team. It's like, we're just leveling it up. We're going to just steamroll right over the competition. Mm-hmm. You're right. My properties aren't better than a lot of the people next to me. There's a couple properties that their properties are way better than mine. but mine's still making more money and still booked more than theirs and still has more reviews. So
it is what it is.
It is what it
about,
is. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Who's making more money?
Yeah.
It really comes down to that. And of course, who's making more, and there's growth and there's bottom line. And, of course, we're trying to maximize both at the end of the day. But yeah, it's interesting. And going back to the fact that there's a lot of competition more and more each day, it's also important to understand that competition, as far as the technology adoption goes, is also adopting more and more of that technology that's out there, which makes it so that just the fact that you use a tool is simply not enough, because it becomes a level playing field where everyone now has the dynamic pricing. I mean, some of these dynamic pricing softwares are out there have 400,000 listings on their platform. And, there's industry experts, just like yourself, that are talking about these tools. And it just makes it so that people go in, test it out, put it in. So all of a sudden, it used to be the case that using a dynamic pricing software was going to give you an edge. But if everyone else is using a dynamic pricing software, how does that give you any kind of edge?
Hence, an expert using the software. Back to knowing how to use your equipment and cameras.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're going back into the same concepts here, but it is important. I think we do need to be, as human beings, reminded more than we need to be taught. And I'm curious to know, when you're looking at our partnership and all the freedom that you have now, thanks to this partnership, what's ahead for you? What are you excited about? What are you looking forward to in the coming months or years?
I'm so excited about the future. I think that our industry is amazing. The people I've met through the industry is amazing. I think we're going through a very much needed cycle where a lot of people who got in the business to make a quick buck are slowly leaving and selling because they can't level up or they can't make money, right? Not everybody, but a lot of those people are the ones that are causing a lot of the issues in the business anyway. So I think we're going through that cycle, and I'm really excited what's going to come out on the other side. You hear me talk about regulations all the time. I think it's fun to be a part of the regulation conversation. I think more states are going to follow what Arizona's doing and try to do statewide regulations, which really excites me because I think that will help clean up the industry quite a bit. And I think more hosts taking charge of building those regulations and working with city council members and stuff is really exciting to me. I think it's really, really cool. I think it's in our best interest to clean up the industry, right? And it's cool to see more hosts coming together to fight for what we believe in and make it better, right? And I'm super excited.
Part of the conversation, like you're saying, being part of that conversation. You don't want to...
Like I have a chair on my shirt right now because and this chair represents, I want to be at the table.
Right.
So it's very important to me. I want to be a voice at the table. I want to pull up a chair and sit down and have these conversations. I'm pretty excited. It's fun to help with the regulations, right? Or just in all conversations, sitting down with you guys and talking Angel Host and Hilde Homes and how we make it better, right? Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to grow the portfolio. I'm, expanding and talking with more investors that help buy some properties, and that's what I really love doing. And so many good things, man. So many good things.
I look forward to the next 2 years as well.
Me too.
Of working with you and sitting back here and talking again about the good results that
Let's do it.
Have achieved at that point. I really appreciate you taking the time. John, I know you're very busy, and it has been amazing. I mean, we haven't paid you to talk about Angel Homes nicely. This is, I think,
my revenue's up.
Your revenue's up. There you go. In the sense that, I appreciate the level at which you are talking positively about Angel Homes, knowing that, we asked you to do this voluntarily because of the fact that we know that we have a good relationship, and so it really means the world to me, and I know it means the world to Angel Host that you take the time to do this and to honestly and openly talk about your experience. And hopefully, if anyone's listening and it's thinking twice about whether they should sign up with Angel Host, what would you say?
Don't wait too long. You better hurry up.
Awesome.
You better hit up my boy right now.
Love it. Thank you so much, man.
Thank you guys. Appreciate you.
Yeah. Have a good one.